Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to DesignerCon 2024. I want to give a shout out to my dad, who's up in the front row, who's been filming me all weekend. Thanks for being here, Dad. I appreciate you. I want to thank everybody else who showed up at the DCon bus stop. We're just going to have another one of these conversations while you wait for whatever and hope we entertain you. On the stage this morning, I'm joined by three amazing creatives. Starting on the far end, we have our friend Wotto, who it's his birthday today.
Woo!
Happy birthday.
Hey,
Thank you.
21 in Las Vegas. Lucky you. The world's your oyster.
Yeah, double that. Double that. But thank you.
And in the middle here, we have Allison Bamcat, who's one of the illustrators, as well as Wotto, that worked on the canvas behind you.
Hi.
How you doing? Good to see you again.
I am doing great.
Nice. And then here we have the creator of Secret Walls and somebody who's just been really working all across the country on tour. Let's give it up for Secret Walls.
Woo!
Thank you. Hello.
So let's get started here. On Friday night, you guys were able to put together this amazing piece where you have the two artists battle. This is something that you've been doing for quite a while. You've been on, how many dates was the tour?
12 cities total. This is the 11th stop, I think.
So Terry's been on tour on 12 stops, and it started how long ago?
Nearly 20 years ago. Yeah.
But how long did the tour start?
Oh, sorry, the tour. About 3 months ago. Yeah.
I understand that when you're on tour, it feels like it's been 20 years, right? But one of the things that's great about Secret Walls, and then kind of one of the things we're going to talk about today, is as the world gets noisier and noisier, it's hard to get people to understand what your event is and what you're doing, because we all live in just a complete data dump every single day. So going on tour and doing 12 different cities, you're trying to keep the Secret Walls audience engaged. You got 90,000 people following you over on Instagram. You don't want them to get tired, like, oh, cool, they're on tour. I'm sick of hearing about this. Terry, how did you and your team keep trying to tell a new story for every event?
Yeah, it's tough, especially as a small team. You know, it's scrappy. You're in the trenches, kind of promoting weekend to weekend, and it's just nonstop. Sometimes I kind of feel like we're overloading the stories and all the rest of it, but you kind of have to when you're in it and you're on the road and you're looking at all the ticket levels and the rest of it. But yeah, so far so good. Somehow with the small kind of team and the strategy that we've had, I think we've sold out 10 of the 11 rooms. We've also been doing really cool Secret Walls academies in each city, which is a new addition to the tours.
The academies are like workshops, right?
Exactly.
Where you work with other people to help find their creative voice?
Yeah, so in 2022, we did an actual bus tour where we drove 15,000 miles, 60 days, nearly killed us. This time we're flying in to each city every weekend, going back to LA to kind of reset, rest, and go again. But what we kind of saw we needed to add was spend more time in the locations. So last time it was kind of drive in, party, and then jump back on the bus and keep going through the night to the next spot. This time we're doing 3 days, and we get a chance to like meet the fans, meet artists, have conversations, have some drinks, have a dinner, an artist dinner, and then we do these come doodle with us Secret Walls Academy workshops. It's all ages, all skill levels. It's just a chance to sit and relax a little bit and meet new people.
20 years ago when you started this in the old country, you were doing this not at universities and different art institutes, right? Like this was a basement level in the back of a bar type of thing. Like it was very street, correct?
Yes, yeah. Shoreditch, before Shoreditch became all glossy, it was.
We got a microphone.
Mic, yeah.
You're back.
Yeah, the mic. It was like warehouse parties. So it was very, very different back in the day. Very raw. Lots of illegal kind of parties across Europe. But I kind of miss those days sometimes. I want to do a few of those again.
Wotto, do you have sort of a punk rock origin story to where you have a really nice day job where you're working inside of the entertainment industry, you keep yourself busy doing all of your fun illustrative work? Like it's pretty glossy right now, but take us back to your origins. Like how do you go down the rabbit hole of like not just doing art, but becoming a member of the art community, which is very different than just doing art?
Yeah, man, I could be here all day.
Let's go.
So one of the things I always say to other creatives that are coming up through the industry is that your career line is never straight, right? It's never a straight line. Some people in life go, I want to be an attorney, and that's wonderful. They go, I'm an attorney, and that's fantastic. But most people that I've met go like this in their career, right? So I started in publishing, didn't really like it, went into t-shirt. Then I went into not doing any art at all for a while, and then I got into t-shirts, which was very random. And it was kind of like when crowdsourcing was kicking off on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, people building.
Were you doing t-shirts freelance, or were you working for like a merch company?
Yeah, well, it started as just for fun. I was like, one of the first t-shirts I ever drew was this stupid clown, and I thought it was just like not that great. But you know, my girlfriend, now wife, was like, just put stuff out in the world and see what happens. You know, and I did that, and it got picked up, and it was printed as a t-shirt and sold really well. And I was like, that's weird. People actually like the stuff that I like to make that's more for me. And so that was a pattern of things that happened for me. So then I had all these sketchbooks where I doodled for years, going back to when I was like 16. And I would fill book after book after book. And that was mental health for me, support, right? I'd have shitty jobs or jobs that I didn't love at the time. And I'd go home and just empty all my creative energy into a book, almost like emptying my brain out onto a page.
Can you pause there for a minute? Because
Sure.
Your art style, I can totally see that being a mind dump, because you take the parcel of paper and you perfectly carve in so many little spaces. Like, I'm always looking at your stuff trying to figure out, like, where did he start? Where did he end? Because it's so dimensional. And I know that you're just playing jazz, right? Like, there's not a plan.
I don't really plan it. I just throw it down. But
it locks together so well.
Yeah, it's almost by accident though, right? You draw in a sketchbook or on a single piece of paper for long enough, you get so good at composition and placing things that it just becomes second nature. You don't even think about it anymore. And that's kind of what happened. And people ask me about that a lot, and I find it really hard to talk about because I'm like, I don't know how I do that.
It's just instinctive at this moment,
Yeah, I'm just
right?
like, I draw this and then I draw that, and it just kind of works. It's like just mentally built in.
And that shows the escapism that you were finding, because you're physically doing something that you don't have to think about, right? And that's kind
to
of
a degree,
zen.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I
love
have
that.
to stop myself drawing the same character over and over and over again because I fall into that trap, you know? Like, I just want to draw skulls today because I'm feeling kind of shitty. But the interesting thing about that is that all those sketchbooks back then I kept to myself.
Nice.
Because there was a part of it that was like therapy. It was like therapeutic. I was like, no one gives a shit about this stuff. No one cares. And then somebody noticed one of my sketchbooks once and says, you know, I should put that on a t-shirt. It's really cool. So that kind of led me to put that stuff out there. And that's when my whole trajectory changed as an artist.
You're an interesting illustrator too, because the type of illustration you were doing back in the day, printing wasn't able to handle that. T-shirts, when you did your clown, central floating image is how we do a t-shirt. And now with all the progression in printing, we can fully wrap anything.
Yeah, for
sure.
sure.
Now your artwork has even more capabilities because the world has caught up with what you've been doing.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up because when I got into t-shirts, I started designing so many t-shirts, working with brands like Billabong and all the big bands and doing a whole bunch of stuff, like 500-600 shirts a year, which was insane when I look back on it. But then the t-shirt industry was like, come work with us. And I didn't even really interview. They were just like, just come be an art director and work with us. So then I caught this really weird thing where I went into a screen print shop and instantly fell in love. Like, I was hooked. I would spend 12 hours there just in this full of paint fumes and 200 people working on shirts. And I'd be like, can I print that?
Yeah.
Can I print it? And I'm on the machine with these guys, you know? And I did that for about 2.5 years, and I learned the t-shirt trade inside out. Like, I knew everything. And I even went and sat in the shipping dock. I was like, where do the t-shirts go? How do they get to Kohl's? I wanted to know all of it. It was like a weird addiction for like 2.5 years. And then that's what ultimately led to me going into the industry, the entertainment industry, because I was considered an expert, which still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
You know, I was just doing something that I really liked.
Well, I mean, that's how it works, right? You love something so much you don't realize you're learning.
Yeah.
And one day you're like, holy shit, I know a lot about this one dumb topic.
Yeah.
But I can really relate with that because, like a lot of people, I was illustrating and drawing. Adobe comes to my life in the early 90s. And I'm doing, stuff in Illustrator and Photo, or not Illustrator, it was Macromedia Freehand and Photoshop back then. But then when I got into screen printing, and I was doing paper, not apparel, it all clicked. Like the power of 2 and 3 colors,
Yeah.
separations, like
Yep.
learning the actual technique of where art goes made me so much better on the front end.
And and then that transcends into my day job where I can go into an executive room and so we're going to do this project. It's going to cost this much money and it's going to deliver on this day because when the artwork leaves the company, no one else in the company knows what that process is on the other end, but I do.
Yes.
So I know roughly how long it's going to take and I'm usually right,
Yeah.
which is, a luxury, but that's why people want to work with me,
Well, and I've also found too, in an executive level of design now, the problem solving you learn from printmaking goes through your entire career, right?
Yeah. And it's weird because somebody asked me the other day, why do you use like 3-4 colors in all of your artwork or like not a lot of color? And I was like, well, have you ever tried to print something on a t-shirt that's 12 colors or 25 colors? It's really difficult. And they're like, but it's not a t-shirt. I'm like, yeah, but in my head, everything's a t-shirt. Like I just can't break that pattern of learned behavior.
It's so funny you say that because my whole first decade of design, everything was a sticker at a skate shop in my brain. Like
Yeah.
I was trying to make that sticker in the skate shop. Allison in the middle does something that intimidates me. I've never done it once. I hope to die never doing it. I don't understand the art of murals. Like I understand that you're an amazing illustrator, but from the paper to the wall, I don't see how you do it and you stay really, really busy doing it. So before you got to the wall, what was your pre-game? Like what's your punk rock origin story before you got up to the wall and became like such a well-known name in graffiti? Or I guess, is it graffiti or is it?
I'm more of a muralist, street artist.
Okay.
But I learned from graffiti artists and, grew up in LA, so I love graffiti. I love seeing it.
You can't live in LA and not understand graffiti, right?
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. So I actually also come from an apparel and product design background. A couple of years after I got out of art school, I got picked up by Converse. So I was doing color separations for screen print patterns.
Good
and
times.
it's funny because I hear you talk about how to break things down like that. And I was tasked with doing a lot of print and patterns. So it was, how do you make a beautiful rose floral and then get it down to 4 colors? And how do you get those depths and highs and lows and also make it the most trend relevant, impactful print that's going to move hundreds of thousands of pairs across the globe? How do you do that and also don't lose yourself and your vision of how you create art? I feel like I really did because I was an anonymous face of a large company. I could not take ownership over anything that I did. Mm-hmm. I had work in magazines, on Hypebeast, but I wasn't credited. And so I became like really bitter about that. Mm-hmm. I loved that I could pay the bills. I loved that I got to travel with my job. I loved the high profile of being a designer for a major brand. But I saw my friends branching out and like, I guess I've always wanted to like be on the ground with everybody else.
Right.
I don't want to show up in the nice outfit that's trend relevant. I was going to Complex Con and going to Agenda for my job, but then at night I was going to see what everybody was up to, seeing what was happening at like a Secret Walls battle. This is 10 years ago I went to my first Secret Walls battle and I think I was forever changed because I was like, everybody's walking around covered in paint, and I'm in business casual, and I felt so out of place. And it's been like a journey since then to get to a place where I show up with paint on my shoes, paint on my clothes, and I'm one of the people on the ground, actually like, doing the stuff in the back alley at night or whatever, running the streets and like living. I feel like I'm living.
So 2 thoughts there that I want to dive into.
Sure.
I want to get to your origin story with Secret Walls, but you bring up something great. We're kind of the first generation of designers that stand next to our work because back in the day, it was anonymous. Most people that did design for consumer product, nobody knew who they were. There was like a couple of people that you knew because they also did editorial stuff in like Rolling Stone and they were able to sign, like I knew who Philip Burke was because I wanted to see his illustration of whatever character he did each, episode of Rolling Stone. So it's an interesting spot now where you're that transitional generation where, there still are people that are anonymous, but you're like, fuck that. I want to be on the front lines. I want people to know who I am and what I'm doing. So, that's interesting. And for you, Wotto, you have still some of that invisibility in your career.
two things that Allison said that I think are really interesting. One is when you work in the industry, which we both have and still do, there's a real interesting thing that happens. And you touched on it when you said, you sell a shoe and you sell 100,000 units of those shoes. Or you do something at work and it goes on to sell 1 million pieces. And you're like, shit, I wish I'd done that on my own, Like, that's beautiful. Like, I did a Billabong shirt back in the day that ran for 5 years. And I was like, man, I wish I kept that design to myself. But, like, there's also something magical about that when you, I just did a collaboration with Crocs and the Minions. And we put a Croc shoe out there and it did really, really well. And I saw the numbers and I was like, I did a good job on that,
Yeah.
I did a collaboration with Buff Monster last year, at Universal, and it sold out and sold through really well, and it was a great experience. And we all got to hang and went to dinner with Buff, and everybody got together. And it's things like that that keep me still interested in the corporate part of it. But my other point is, when I lived in London, and strangely, me and Terry ran in very similar circles but never met, which is so weird. But I was doing publishing work during the day and working on kids magazines and all sorts of stuff that was mind-numbing to me. But at night, I would go out and paint across the streets of London, and go climb up. I won't get into it too much because, we're breaking the law and,
I was going to say, it's all legal, of course, everything you did, right?
No,
Me
nothing
too.
at all.
Same.
I got caught a bunch of times. It's all good. But and you'd go out into the street, and back then, I'm sure Terry has even better stories. You'd go and you'd be painting and you'd start talking to some people. You realize that it's D-Face now.
Yeah.
Or it's like one of these guys that's blowing up huge. But back then we all just wanted to go paint. And that was the release, right? That's what you were talking about. It's like, I got this corporate gig that I'm bound to because I got rent to pay. But when I go out at night with a bunch of people and just paint random shit on the wall, there's magic in that. I don't have to answer to anybody. No one's paying me to do this. This is just for fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like the things have started to level out. The fun things are now acceptable and, part of the industry.
But you also bring up a great point where back in the day, these cats were throwing stuff up on wall. They were anonymous. But now there's a fandom for everything because everybody can curate and everybody has distribution through social media.
Yeah.
And so now when you go to London, part of the rites of passage is to walk around like Brick Street and all that stuff and try to figure out.
You got to get a curry on Brick Street though. Got good curry houses.
Bro, I don't curry, but I'll eat the fuck out of that salt bagel. But you walk around London and you're like, holy shit, like that's that dude, And there's now, like, if you know the scene, there's a guide who was there. And I remember I was interviewing OG LA graffiti artist Man One, and he was kind of telling me about the cats that grew up before him. They were just completely anonymous in the process. They knew each other, and that's the only thing that they needed to. And so it's interesting how, like, we live in a world of distribution and marketing. But I want to get to this conversation. How do we go from power suit Allison to respirator Bamcat? Like, tell me about, you go to Secret Walls 10 years ago. How many years until you're actually on the wall?
So I'm really grateful that I worked in the industry that I worked in because I got to travel a lot. And because I was kind of the head of my own team for a little bit, there were times where I got to book my own travel. So I'd say I was going to a trade show and go to the trade show during the day, get the data that I needed to get, and then make sure that I was hitting up whatever events I could at night. So, like, the first time I went to Miami Art Week was 10 years ago this week, I guess. And that's the first time I went to Secret Walls. And just like, I don't know, there was this thing like wrestling with identity about, okay, so I'm making this stuff for somebody else, and these guys are making stuff for themselves. And I have no idea how to use spray paint. I've never painted a mural before. I had painted like windows when I worked at Blick in college, to advertise the next sale. So I did some like sign painting, and it was really like when I decided to quit my day job, I basically just saved up as much money as I could for a year, paid off as many of my debts as I could, and moved back to Los Angeles from Boston because I grew up in LA. And just started from zero. Like, okay, so I've got like a little bit of a social media following. I don't have any major clients that are consistent, but I do have a lot of free time. So like, who can I talk to who I already know who lives out here, who knows like a wall that I could scribble some spray paint on? And I started just I said yes to everything.
Yeah.
Somebody invited me somewhere. I said, yes, I can be there. I can bring stuff. I'll bring my own paint. Just let me have a section and I'll do it. So, and then I met a lot of great friends through that. And then had friends like Daniel Toledo, who's one of my best friends, who goes by Mr. Toledo, started teaching me a few more like spray can tricks. So learning spray paint at 30, very humbling when you're surrounded by like 19-year-olds who can like paint you, out of the water.
Yeah.
So it was really just like, out of the frying pan into the fire. How comfortable are you being embarrassed in front of people and not doing well?
Yeah.
And like painting large walls with secret walls. I'm like, I don't even have a character. I have a million characters. So I just have to be flexible and enthusiastic and remember that I'm not going into an office every day. Everywhere is my office. And how cool is that?
Yeah.
I'm still so like enchanted by that.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a great point because like I grew up in the hardcore scene and doing lots of things. And when I did my first ever art, show in public, I had spent thousands of hours on stage, very comfortable in front of public, have no stage fright, no fear of speaking in public at all. I remember putting my first poster up in my booth and I was like, holy shit, this is the scariest moment ever. And it was next to Daniel Danger, so no big deal, My shitty little booth is next to one of the legends. I'm like, oh, this is humbling. But people walked up and the first poster I put up was actually the first one that I sold. And that self-confidence, right? Of going from being somebody looking at the art world from the outside to you're like, holy fuck. I'm standing inside of it now and I'm meeting people and all my friends are people that I looked up to and now they're my peers. But the real question that you avoided is that 10 years ago, you go to a secret wall. What year are you actually a part of Secret Walls?
Oh, sorry, I totally spaced on that part. Actually, the very first battle that I ever did was DesignerCon After Party VIP Night 2017. So this is my 7-year anniversary.
Nice.
Being up on stage, very cool.
So 3 years of just kind of figuring it out, and then you're part of the scene, and I love that because they always say it takes 3 years to build a business. And I've seen that in my life several times when I get into something, around year 3, it starts to mature, and Pinocchio feels like a boy, and things are actually working. So I love that journey. Terry, these are two talented people out of like tons of people that you have met, they've come up to you, they've wanted to get involved. Like, how does it feel to not only be a curator of art, but a curator of community?
I mean, these are the stars of the show. And big up Brian Butler. He's somewhere here, but he was who connected me
Shout
and
out.
Allison. But yeah, I'm lucky enough to meet all these artists and met lots of new ones over the weekend here. And I love the journeys and just watching these guys grow, from the Gondeks to the Brett Crawfords to the Allisons, etc. And
Yeah.
I'm a small, tiny little drop in that story. But our platform, weirdly, has just kept going. I didn't imagine it would go past 3 years. I thought it was kind of a European tour and done, but we just kept kind of growing and moving to the next place. But yeah, it's the artists that power it and the fans that show up. I don't even know what the question was, but big up these guys.
I mean, here's an interesting thing. Like, people that normally have your position are pretty humble.
Yeah.
But I don't think you realize how important you are to the artist, right? Because without the people that sort of organize and wrangle and curate and collect us, we're just fucking maniacs spinning around the earth. And you guys know how to corral cats.
Yeah.
And there's a real talent to that. And so one of the things that you've done is you've not only, brought lots of artists into your space and let them see what's possible, but like people like these two are now buds and all the other people are buds and they're good buds. And like the camaraderie of, 6 artists technically competing against each other, but all in the name of fun and community, like that's a pretty powerful art itself.
Yeah. And this, on stage the other day, Wotto with Stephen McGarry and Luke McGarry, the first father and son combo as well. You guys,
absolute legends.
Yeah, legends.
Yeah, great guys.
Joy Division, all that artwork and that whole era. But you had 20 minutes to prep, and they smashed this out.
Yeah, less than that. But I think Terry downplays it a little bit, the power of Secret Walls, and I think that's an asset to Terry and the humble approach that he has. But I remember Secret Walls hitting the scene in London because I was there at the time, and I was a little intimidated with Secret Walls when it first came out because it was so underground and so cool. And then, you know, we never really crossed paths when we lived in the same country. But when I moved out here, turns out that we connected. It was so strange. But what Secret Walls does is very special. Like, it brings people together that otherwise might not. Like, yeah, I drew with a guy who did Joy Division's album cover a couple of days ago. And
that's even more huge being from the UK.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's huge to me because I grew up listening to that music and loving his work.
Yeah.
And now his son's doing work, and then I get to stand up here and draw with them. It's like, but that's the beauty of it. You're thrown into this situation that you wouldn't do yourself. You know, I wouldn't have the balls to go over to the McGarry brothers and say, hey, do you want to go out on the parking lot and draw on the wall? They'd be like, get out of here. Who the hell are you? Get out of here. But Terry and Secret Wars is able to pull that together in a really, it's kind of a unique and strange situation, right? And that's, for me, the challenge of Secret Wars is every time I have to get on stage with a different person, and I have to be in the moment, and I have to perform under pressure and work with people I've never worked with before. And I've done a battle with Allison before, and we've worked together, and then we've been on the opposite side, like this weekend, and there's just such joy in that. Like, it's so playful and funny and fun, and like there's a bit of rivalry and camaraderie, but ultimately we're all here to have a good time, you know?
I mean, I think forever there'll be a part of me that will always be the 13-year-old kid that went into the skate shop for the first time and felt completely intimidated by the older kids.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like my generation was the last generation that was scared of the older kids. Like, I don't feel like the youth today gives a fuck about the older kids. But there's a part of that that's always going to be in my mind of like, oh man, do I fit in here? Do I not? And the one thing I've always noticed about the art scene is that if you're giving it your all, everyone around you is always super fucking cool. Like, whenever we've done the flat stock events where we all start, you know, drawing on something or collaborating, like, I've never seen anybody shit on anybody. I've only seen people lift each other up. And that's always been very inspiring, because if you just come in here as a Patreon, it can be very, very intimidating. And I would just love to tell people, like, just cross to the other side, become a vendor, and you will find your brothers and your sisters, and your whole world will change because your network will change.
Yeah.
And speaking of networks changing, you're an interesting guy, Wotto, in that you have a position of power with your job where, you know, you work for a big company that has big budgets and big opportunities. And what do? But you recruit in people that you admire. And you just think, man, if people could go to Universal and see some of the artists that I love, and if I could introduce that person to a bigger stage, or just, you know, get to become buds with somebody, like, I always appreciate guys like you that are recruiting from the inside.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a conversation yesterday with an artist, and I was like, you know, really all I do, and I guess it's downplaying a little bit, is I collect artists in a big long list, and I remember their art style. And then when projects come across, I go, yes, this is a guy from... It happened recently. There was a music album cover with a pretty big rap artist that did music for Despicable Me 4, and the project literally got halfway across my desk, and I was like, Tony Riff. Tony Riff's doing this artwork. And everyone was like, what? And I'm like, this artist, I've been waiting 15 years to do something with him. And I called him up, and I was like, I got a project for you, and it's amazing, and it's this rap artist, and you probably know who it is. And he was like, oh my God, that's huge. And I was like, yeah, but it's yours, you know? And like, there's huge joy in that for me. You know, it's connecting things together that totally make sense, you know?
While we're speaking about the art of curation, Allison, do you have other women that reach out to you and go, how do I get to do what you're doing?
All the time.
I bet.
Yeah, because it felt so difficult for me to like pry myself out of my kind of happy little life and, you know, trial by fire, just quit my day job and try to learn how to be an artist full time. I really advocate for women and, you know, underserved community members to like just reach out. I hire assistants all the time who have no spray paint experience, who have no mural experience, and like day one you're getting paid, you're helping me. As long as you're serious and you want to be here and you care, like that'll take you everywhere. So
yeah, I mean, I know you didn't start all of this to become a role model, but there's no doubt that you are an avatar for some young women of like, she's doing it, I can do it.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
she'll help me do it, you know?
It's all out of spite for all the things that I didn't get. I want to make sure that somebody else gets it.
Hey,
and
spite is a
help,
powerful fucking tool.
Absolutely. I'm still running on spite.
Hell yeah. Hey, never stop. Never stop. So Terry, when you've done the tours, You've traveled the world. Like, what's on the to-do list? Like, what do you think you can keep doing to entertain the Secret Walls community? Keep bringing new artists in. Like, what's on the to-do list?
Yeah, I the tours will continue, and we're building towards. 20 years ago, I said that I wanted to bring art back to the Olympics because it was in the Olympics through 30s, I think, to like 48.
No shit.
Yeah, you could win a gold medal for sculpture creation. You could, I think, canvas painting, spoken word. So I kind of said it as a joke, but recently Pharrell said it in Paris, and it's now poured fuel on the fire, and that kind of with that mission. So we've been pushing that quietly, and we're building towards an LA 28 Olympics Secret Walls model.
Oh my God!
First time we've said that. We're not publicly talking about it.
That's phenomenal.
So there's that. So art and sports and kind of how we bring them closer and have fun with the battles. But personally, I think with the academy stuff and what these guys were just talking about, kind of being an inspiration and a hero to others, lifting other people up, that's what Secret Walls is really about. It's like bringing the next, young or old artists on stage. It doesn't matter what age, what background. Let's get you up and give it a go. I see that in the academies, and I kind of want to double down on that personally. And just tell our stories, let the artist be the hero in those workshops to show, like what Wotto said, the ups and the downs, and show the kind of the bad sketches at the very start to where you are now, and that you're on a similar journey, and it's not that hard. You just got to be brave and give it a go. So I want to do more academies, I suppose, is the short answer.
I mean, it's a great point, because when you are in front of the canvas or the notebook or the wall, it is a battle of one, right? But you have done such a great job of putting so many different creative people together to this thing that's entirely intimate that you do by yourself. Oh shit, I'm doing it with two buds. We're doing it in front of a room of other creative people, and we're all having fun, And it's like, it doesn't matter what the end result is. It is truly one of those moments in life where it is about the journey, I mean, I guess there's a winner, but it's the camaraderie that I think everybody really catches up on. And, emceeing these events before and being in the crowd, it's fun for me to see what you guys don't see behind your back, of people just like, they're trying to guess what's next. Like, oh, fuck, that's what it is. And like, it really is good entertainment. Like, people enjoy the process and seeing how the sauce is made.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some people battle harder than others, and we don't give them any brief. Artists kind of do their thing, and it's always amazing. Never gets boring. Obviously, been to a few thousand at this point. And as they said earlier, the combinations, bringing this artists up in different formations, 1-on-1, 3-on-3s, 10-on-10s. We just have fun with it, and it's just a collaboration.
It's also interesting too that we have two artists at the table here that color is a big part of your storytelling, and Secret Walls is just black on white. So that's got to be extra hard to like kind of get taken away from some of your secret powers, right?
Yeah, he keeps inviting me back, so I hope. But no, my work is full color. I don't even use black in my paintings at home. So this is always a big challenge for me, but such a fun challenge.
Yeah.
So I love it.
I want to see when you really flip the script and you just give people a black wall and they got to do relief and go backwards.
We did that in Cincinnati recently.
Really?
Yeah, we did
crazy.
Cincinnati Blink Festival. It was a 50-foot by 20-foot wall. We had scissor lifts for the artists in front of 600-700 people. Spray paint. We went big. 90 minutes still, so same time.
90 minutes on scissor lifts?
6v6. This was a month ago, and half the wall was black, half the wall was white. We'd never done it before. We just kind of. I think we were half drunk the night before and just made up a new rule set. So.
That's crazy.
That's insane. What do you got on your books for next year? What's the big plans?
I don't know. This year's been insane. It really has. I've had a lot of huge opportunities, a lot of really great products and projects. And I'm kind of in a really good position now where I don't have to say yes to everything, and nice. I kind of pick and choose things. And for me, that's a difficult spot, because as you said, when you're starting out, you're so hungry that you want to say yes to everything. But I've realized that there's certain projects, whether it's with a huge brand or just a small brand, you should probably say no to some of them, because they're not always hiring you for your work, or they're trying to manipulate your work or tell you exactly what to do. So I'm getting old and I don't have time for that sort of argument anymore. It's not in me anymore.
Aren't you a year older today? Happy birthday.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, all 21 of me, like you said.
21 in Vegas. Look at him go.
So next year, I'm kind of leaving it open. I've had a really good year. I'm really, really happy with how the year's gone. Had a lot of private commissions, which is awesome. Next year, I don't know, more secret walls, hopefully.
Nice.
I love doing these things because it's so different to everything else that we do. I don't know. I'll see what comes by.
You just said something that was really smart, and Allison said something that was smart, and they conflict. So but actually, guy who's listening to the episode right now, Allison brings up a great point. When you're starting, you always say yes because you need opportunities. But you bring up another point. Eventually, you earn the right to say no.
Yeah.
And that is a crossroad that we all have to get to, where you say yes and yes and yes until you're at the moment where you're like, now I can say no.
Yeah, and it's sometimes, with social media and the platforms that we're all tied to, there's this almost like jumping through hoops thing for artists. And I actually think that's getting worse for a lot of artists. It's like you can't just be an artist. You got to be a marketing director. You got to be making content. You got to show your face every 2 seconds. Like, that's a lot of work and pressure, And so I think it's important to teach the generations that are coming up through that. Because when I started out, I walked around London with a portfolio in my hand,
Old school, baby.
Yeah, so a lot has changed. I got told no a lot. Your work's too creepy, go away. But a lot has changed, but I think that similar pressures are still there, right? Like, make this, make that, show your face more, post more reels, do more content. And it's like, guys, just make art and put it out in the world. And if someone else resonates with your art, you'll have success.
Yeah.
But that story is so hard to tell now because everyone's just ramping things up.
A lot of noise out there.
So I think it is important too that a lot of people chase big brands and big things. When people hear about my day job, oh, can I do something with you guys? And I'm like, it doesn't always work that way, And we get people that say no all the time. And I respect that, if the job's not right, you say no to it. But that isn't the mentality on social.
No.
It's like if Nike or whoever the big brand is comes to you, you go, absolutely.
Right.
But maybe it's not the right job for you.
Yeah.
And sorry to hog here, but the other thing, I had a client recently that came to me. I won't mention names or anything, but they came, and it just wasn't right for me, and I didn't feel comfortable. But it was a big brand, and they were a little bit knocked back when I said no. But I was like, there's other people in this industry, and I can give you a short list who will do this better than me. So maybe work with somebody else that you'll have a better product. It'll work better for that artist. And I'll thank you, but no.
I can only envision the amount of confusion.
Yeah, I walked away from it and I was like, what have I done? You're an idiot. But
That's great. Allison, what do you got on tap for next year?
I'm still kind of building up my roster for next year. I know one thing I'm really looking forward to is an exhibition at the Brand Library with ThinkSpace projects. I love ThinkSpace. I've always looked up to them since I was seeing them in magazines in 2005 at my job at Blick, flipping through the magazines because I couldn't afford to buy them. Being able to work with them, they're like a second family to me. And,
awesome.
I'm really grateful. They continue to give me opportunities. And so I think I might be doing a small mural and a larger painting for them, which is like dream come true.
That's great.
And so then some other kind of group art shows. And then I'm just applying like crazy for different mural festivals. I'd love to paint out of the country for the first time. I'd love to paint a mural somewhere international.
Just go to Canada and get nuts?
Yeah, so I just apply to everything, and I get rejected 99% of the time. But you build like a thick skin
for sure
after a while. So I'm just trying to build up my year, and I don't know, any gaps that will be good time to create and make my own paintings and practice.
Terry, thank you so much for being part of another DCon. Thank you for what you do for the community, both the people that come in just to watch the show, but also what you do for other artists. And I know you're going to stay humble, so I don't need to tell you to, but what you do really illustrates that there is so much more room in the art world for people that don't actually make art. And people like you are, I think, the true MVPs because we need people like you. So thanks for everything you do.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for showing up at the DCon bus stop and hanging out. Hopefully your bus will be here soon and you can go on to your next travels. Hope you enjoy the rest of your DCon. Thanks for showing up. Thanks, Dad, for filming us. Thank you.